Hello, everybody. Welcome to Managerial Accounting, Cost, Volume, Profit. These are my additional questions. This is part two of the composite units, just to break this up in a little bit of smaller parts. This presentation is copyright 2024 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights are reserved. This may not be distributed or redistributed without my express written permission, and my video just went away. So let me just try this again, see if we can get it going, and see what's happening here. Okay. So let's just go ahead and go to it. So probably have to read. There it goes. Wow. Amazing. See how long it lasts. Okay. So coming over here to our question. So we had Kira's coloring markers. We had this initial question where I gave basically the fixed costs. Where I gave an amount of fixed costs, and then we had to go through and solve the contribution margin per composite unit. And then we went through and made contribution margin income statements. The second part in terms of this next one is more of a kind of a little bit of a challenging question, except that assume the same facts above, except a tax rate of 30%. An after-tax profit of $455,175 it is desired. And then how many units of Scarlet are sold, and then how many units of Lime are sold, and then the total sales dollars to achieve a desired after-tax profit. So when we're going through and looking at this type of question, I want you to think about the break-even point in composite units. We took our fixed costs and divided it by the contribution margin per composite unit. If we have a situation where we need to achieve a certain after-tax profit, basically what's going to happen is this is going to be, not only do we have to cover our fixed costs, but our desired pre-tax profit. And if you look at some of the other questions we've been going through and doing, if we kind of think about it, well, we have our sales, we have our variable costs. This is going to give us our contribution margin. And then we're going to say less our fixed costs. This is going to give us our net income pre-income taxes. Now, when we were doing break even, right, we had this 260, 100. And so it's just about when we're looking at break even, well, break even means it equals zero. But if we're asked to go through and to say, well, what would I need to make on a pre-tax basis? Then we would need to go through and do something similar to one of the other problems we did earlier, which is going through and saying, well, less our income taxes is going to give us our net income after tax. Okay, so again, when we're looking at these questions, if I give you something like this on a test, or if you see something like this is probably the way you're going to want to go through and set it up. If we look at our net income after tax, it says that we're desiring a $455,175 after tax profit, right? We also know that the fixed costs, assume the same facts above, the fixed costs are still going to be $260,100. Okay, so what is my net income pre-income taxes going to be? Well, here, if I have a tax rate of 30%, if I call this Z times 0.3 or 0.3Z, if I write this as an equation, I get Z minus 0.3Z equals 455,175. 0.7Z equals 455,175. Z is going to be equal to 455,175 divided by 0.7. So over here, my net income pre-income taxes is 652.50. So if I multiply this by 0.3, I get 195,075, which equals to my net income after tax. So the contribution margin that I'm trying to achieve, right? Before it was just I was trying to go through and achieve fixed costs. But now it's going to basically be both of these, right? So it's going to be right over here, 910, 350. This is what I'm going through and aiming for. 910, 350 minus 260, 100 is going to give me 650, 250 minus the 195.75 is going to give me 455, 175. Thus, the importance of when we're going through and handling these questions. This is really important to remember. You generally want to try writing these out in terms of looking at creating what I call the matrix. So let's go through now and see where we are. So if we use this formula, so basically my break-even point to achieve, so amount, let's call this like amount to achieve after tax profit in composite units. This is going to be 910, 350 divided by my contribution margin per composite unit. So let's just go ahead and we'll go ahead and redo these ones over here. And will be a nice little review for us to go through and do. So over here, we have our, okay, so my contribution margin per composite unit, what I'm going to do over here is basically, I'm going to do the same thing I did in the other question. My per unit contribution margin is going to be 100 for Scarlet, 80 for Cyan, 60 for Goldenrod, and 150, right? I'm going to give you this information for the particular question. The ratio I have is 10 to 9 to 7 to 5. Where did I get that information? Well, coming right up over here, so I sold the products 10, 9, 7, 5. Coming over here to this part over here, what I'm now going to do is basically my contribution margin per composite unit is going to be exactly the same as what my question was previously, or 2,890. So what I now need to go through and do is right over here, the number of composite units I need to sell in order to achieve the desired after-tax profit is going to be 315. So what do I do from here? Well, as we kind of go through and remember, is that when I'm coming up over here with my 315, which is the amount of composite units I need to sell in order to go through and achieve the desired after-tax profit. So what I'm going to do over here is my composite units. I'm going to have Scarlet, Cyan, Goldenrod, and Lime. And remember, we're not going through and selling these in the same ratio, right? So I'm going to take the composite units to achieve the desired after-tax profit. I'm going to multiply the ratio, and I'm going to come up over here with my units to be sold, or my ratio, sorry. So my ratio is 10, 9, 7, 5. When I take the composite units to achieve the desired after-tax profit, I multiply that by the ratio. I'm going to go here and get, this is going to be the number of units I need to go through and to sell in order to achieve the after-tax profit I am desiring. Now, when we're looking at this over here, how can I quickly check my work? Well, if I go back to this, if I'm looking at the contribution margin, remember this needs to equal 910, 650. So if I take the units to be sold and I multiply this by my per unit contribution margin, right? So if I take this amount I just computed and my per unit contribution margin, what I'm going to get is my total contribution margin, 910,350. That's what equals my contribution margin. So I know I got the right result. That's probably the best way to go through and do this. So how many units of Scarlet are sold? Well, in terms of the number of units of Scarlet that are being sold, it's going to be 3,150 to achieve the desired after-tax profit. How many units of Lime are sold? Well, number of units of Lime I need to sell is 1,575. My total sales dollars to achieve the desired after-tax profit. So coming over here, right, if I'm going to go ahead and look at this again, let's go ahead and make this go right over here. So let's do this. Okay. So my units to be sold are right over here. 3,150, 2,835, 2,205, and 1,575. I'm being asked for my total sales dollars, right, to achieve the desired after-tax profit. So my sales price, right over here is going to be 200, 160, 100, and 400. When I go through and take this through units to be sold times the sales price, this is going to be my total sales. So over here, I'm going to get 1,934,100. So the answer over here to this, or what are my total sales dollars to achieve the desired after-tax profit, is going to be right over here. Remember, when you're doing these questions, the more you spend time with these particular questions, the better off you are going to be. It really does not want me to show my video. So this is always fun. Well, nope, I guess I'm not going to be shown. So this is what we're going through and doing. So the best advice I can give you on all of these types of questions is you want to plug the numbers in to make sure they go through and work. If you don't do that, you're not going to enjoy what happens next. So in any event, I want to thank you for joining me here today. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below, and look forward to seeing you on future videos. Have a great day.